Welcome to Dr. Jeffrey Roth's Looking Good and Feeling Great podcast, live from Las Vegas, with his co-host, Darrell Craig Harris. Hi, folks. This is Dr. Jeffrey Roth, your board-certified plastic surgeon in Las Vegas, and we are at it again.
Yes, we are, live from the office.
Yes, we're here from the friendly confines of Las Vegas Plastic Surgery over on Fort Apache Road in Las Vegas, Nevada. And today's a special day. We're actually, it's election day here in Las Vegas and across the country. And by the time this airs, hopefully we'll know who's won and all that. And it is very, very important. We work with the Clark County Medical Society, Medical Association, and those organizations work with the Nevada legislature a lot because there's always bills that come up which directly impact our patients. And so we want to go ahead and advocate best we can for the patients. So again, if you are a patient, and guess what? We all are a patient at some point or another, in our life. Or our loved one.
Either by choice or by necessity.
Right, 100%. Yeah. By all means, that's a good place to try to get some information or help advocate, especially at the Nevada State Medical Association level. So if you have an interest in that or in legislation, medical wise, that might pertain to you or your family member, please ask questions. Please contact us because all that stuff is really important.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think with elections, there's a lot of ramifications beyond just the obvious immediate stuff. So it's all important to participate. I think that's whatever side you might be on.
Right. So absolutely. Get informed, vote. And then after that, be informed and keep these folks accountable, and especially talk to if you're a constituent, talk to your, especially in the state house, talk to your legislature, because they make decisions that actually really do impact you, both, especially on the state level, but also on the national level as well.
Absolutely.
So, they're out there spending your money, so it's okay to kind of tell them
exactly,
where you want it, what your priorities are.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So Las Vegas, there is a lot happening these days in Las Vegas. We have the Las Vegas Raiders, and then we also have boxing, which we're personally tied into in some way. Yep. We actually have a big fight this weekend.
We do. So yes, we have there's always something going on in Las Vegas, as you know, whether it's Formula One, which is going to be absolutely spectacular. And Las Vegas is that town that if you can dream it, you can do it. And that's not just a slogan. It is, okay, you want us to block off the entire town and have race cars go 120 miles an hour around hairpin turns. Sure. Yeah, we do that.
Which they've actually been doing because they're filming commercials. That's been happening this past week.
They're doing Brodies. Do they still call them Brodies? The multi-million-dollar cars are doing what the NASCAR guys love. They love coming and doing that and spinning around.
Doing donuts in the middle of the strip.
Donuts in the middle of the strip with these F1 cars. It's preposterous, and we're all for it.
Well, Vegas is sort of built on preposterous.
We're all for it. And then F1 just went ahead and took a big chunk of land over there on Harmon, which used to be a place called the Drink.
Off the strip.
The Drink, a little bit off the strip. But their paddocks are going to be there. They're going to have experiences for the fans and all that sort of stuff. So that's going to be phenomenal. And they're already renting out penthouses for $60,000. It's just craziness. So, but Las Vegas will pull it off. I mean, we have 150,000 rooms. That's right, 150,000 rooms here in Vegas. So we can pull that off.
And we have NASCAR.
We have NASCAR, which we love, and they're great. We have the rodeo, which we love. The Cowboys are great. Love those guys. And then we have the world champion Aces. It's the first professional here in Las Vegas that we have a world championship with. We were national champions with UNLV running Rebels basketball. That was about 30 years ago.
That was a long time.
But we're still working on that. And then of course the Raiders. We have a $2 billion stadium, and guess what? It's working because the people are coming. They're enjoying themselves. It's the highest priced ticket in the league.
Yeah.
And it's been a hoot as far as that goes. There's rumors afoot, as you and I talked about. We have a AAA team here in Las Vegas with a beautiful ballpark. They're also thinking of moving the Oakland A's.
Yeah, they're working on it
here. And so there's a few spots that they're thinking of putting them. And so that's going to be really interesting as well. We have soccer. They've always been talking about that. We have indoor lacrosse now that's coming up.
For many years, pro sports teams were just wasn't going to happen in Vegas.
No,
because of the gambling.
Oh yeah, so there's all of that, and so all of a sudden we've really become quite the sports town. And then of course the Golden Knights, the hockey team, which really started the major league level here. So all of a sudden we've become a sports town.
Yeah, it's exciting.
But to answer your point for years and years, none of the major leagues would have anything to do with Vegas because of the connotation. And what I think that they've found is that we take that seriously. So it's kind of like our Wall Street. I mean, these guys, and you've seen them, the day traders or the guys on Wall Street, anytime somebody hiccups with any stock, they know about it immediately. And the same thing can really be said for the folks that are setting the lines here in Las Vegas. Now in the information age, they have so much information and they put this through the computers. And boy, I tell you, I don't know how they do it, but they come up with the lines that fall almost perfect. Crazy. And especially the half points. I mean, my dad has lost, I don't know how many on a half point and drove him bananas for decades. And so, they're really, really good at it. And so the national organizations, the major league organizations, I think have finally said, hey, no, these guys are for real and they take this seriously and this is their major industry. And I think that they've been impressed by the level by which that things are monitored.
Right. And it's not hard to get fans to come to Vegas.
Yeah. So
that's another part of the story.
And Vegas has always been known for, what's going to attract you, whether it's great entertainment, whether it's great spectacle, whether that's a fight, whatever the case may be. Okay, well, let's fly out here. Right. It's not going to snow here most of the time. It's a great airport. We get 1 million people, basically 1 million people through the airport every weekend, which it's still setting more and more records. The food is terrific. The accommodation is terrific. The nightlife terrific. The one thing that's our one industry. So we do that really, really well. And we built the place so that folks, my Chicago people, my East Coast people, when it's February and it's -10, come on to Las Vegas.
You want to get out of Green Bay.
Oh, all of it. God bless them. I don't know how they do it. I did that for 11 years and God bless them. If I never have to shovel the snow again, that'll be cool with me. But, and again, I sound soft, but those guys they're I don't know how they do it. New England winners. But having said that, give them an excuse to come out to Vegas and see their favorite team and, run around a little bit. And those are the ones that are in shorts in February. You can tell them a mile away and they're having a blast. And that's why we built it. By all means. But to your point is boxing. Yeah. So boxing has really been synonymous with Las Vegas, especially during the fights in Caesar's Palace.
Yeah, we all grew up with Ali and Frazier and all those
all those guys. Marvelous Marvin Hagler and Chavez.
Tyson lives here.
Tyson and Sugar Ray Leonard and all those guys. And especially when they were at Caesars in the parking lot. And again, hey, let's put a boxing ring in the parking lot. Okay, let's put Formula One, and this happened in the 80s, in the parking lot at Caesars Palace before they built the Forum shops. Okay, let's do it. And so that this is just continue on a theme. So and there's big fights and there's little fights. There's stuff that is, 18,000 people. There's stuff that's in Dallas Stadium, which is 65,000 people. There's stuff in England and London, English was 96,000 people.
Yeah, we both were at the Fury fight.
Yes, and so boxing is thriving, and so the fight coming up at the Palms, which is one of my favorite properties, and at the Pearl at the Palms, which is one of my favorite places. There's not a bad seat in the house, and it's kind of an intimate setting, so you can really sort of hear and feel what's going on. And these guys hit hard, and it's one of those places that's really not a bad seat in the house, and Top Rank is really kind of gone out of their way to not overprice it. They scale it, and Bob Aram and the folks over there are cognizant of not everybody can pay $1,000 for a seat, but you want the fight fan that follows along and that reads. You want them to have a price point that they can get in there, have dinner, have a couple beers with their buddy, and have a good night. And so that's important. They give tickets to veterans and et cetera, et cetera. So they try to reward the the loyal fight fan. And then those guys usually, and gals, plenty of gals at the fights now too.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are really well educated about the history.
Those are some of the best fights I've actually seen.
and just the spectators. But right. having said that, that one fight that we saw at,
with Michaela and Hamadouche. Yeah.
That was unbelievable. That was one of the best fights I've ever seen. Nobody blocked a punch. Everybody, and it was 2-minute rounds. They'll fix that and all. But having said that, they got into the center ring and they could have had that. Truly, they could have had it in the phone booth, and they just beat the out of each other.
Right.
And I'm just like, holy smokes! And they both.
Michaela Meyer was actually an Olympic team, American.
Yeah.
And Hamadouche, I think, is French. Yeah.
And she was tough as nails.
Tough.
So I was just like, holy smokes! I mean, just haymakers. And I'm just like, wow. So yeah, you get treated to that, and especially these sort of fights, you see a lot of folks that are like, 10-2. They're going to be something. They're on their way up. Or you have two guys that are like 10-2, and they want that next kind of big fight. So it can be very, very exciting. And so that's coming up. This week it's fight week. Oh God.
So when you're, cause you're often ringside for these fights here, and not only in Vegas, but you've kind of done those all over the world. When you're ringside as a doctor, I know I've been known to sew up some of the fighters.
Yep.
So talk a little bit about the medicine or the sports medicine aspect of that.
Sure. So all these guys, they're professional athletes, usually hire folks nowadays. And I was talking to Bob about this a while ago, trying to compare the modern techniques versus the old techniques, because he's been around since literally Ali. That was his first fight. And all of those guys, Crivello,
he's one of the
and all that kind of stuff. Oh, and he's 90 years old now. And he says, oh, no, the training is better and the food is better. And I mean, back
the safety is better.
Safety is better. Yeah, they've all of that. I mean, still, it's a brutal sport. It's a contact sport, and it can be very tough. But has said that is those things that are achievable now couldn't have been achievable back then. Not because the guys weren't talented, but because the training has gotten better. I mean, the shoes have gotten better, the gloves have gotten better.
It's really in a lot of ways, it's a different sport.
So yeah, so there's that, and there's that history of that boxing has that's gone on for literally 100 years now. So all that stuff is better. So to answer your question is these folks are professional athletes. They hire folks that try to get them in the best physical and mental shape that they can. And so what you're seeing there is really folks that are at the top of their game. And so there's so much preparation and so much that you don't see before they even get to the ring. And then once they're in the ring, really boxing is a really interesting sport because it's not a team sport. There's nobody that has to. There's nobody
mono on mono.
It's the most basic of sports. Now you have a corner and you have coaches and they'll tell you, step left, step right, double jab, whatever the case may be. But really it's you. And that to me is really, really very interesting. And you're there in front of thousands of people, in a pair of shorts and a pair of boots and there's nowhere to hide.
Yeah,
and
you have to deliver.
It's all you. And that really is a warrior mindset. And those guys are just special. And the guys that I've, and gals that I've taken care of, the boxers just want to box, they want to fight, and they want to earn something for their family or send it home, or it's for their country, but they're all heart. And these guys, they talk money. Yeah. But really it's the sport and it's really the heart when you really get down, get down to it.
So what would be I guess the obvious boxing kind of injuries that you would deal with as a doctor?
Sure.
It's going to be cuts. It's going to be.
Sure. So now again, the guys that you see in the ring are the folks that are specially trained by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and they're the boss. They go first. And a lot of those guys are trauma docs or ER docs or neurosurgeon. So those guys are specially trained, and my hat's off to them because they have to make a decision. They have 1 minute between rounds to go ahead and make a decision whether that
and they can
fight
stop
continues and everything else like that. So yeah, they recommend to the referee, depending on the state, to stop the fight or not, et cetera, et cetera. Every boxer gets a pre-fight physical and a post-fight physical exam. And they go to the little medical tent and they get an exam. And so at the end of the fight, if the boxer has a cut and they're not going to the hospital, then a guy like me can step in and go, hi, so you have a cut. Do you want me to fix that for you? But the athletic commission guys, they're the boss. They always go first. And if the fighter goes to the hospital, then of course that algorithm is the folks at the hospital, ER, or trauma bay or whatever will go ahead and address the soft tissue stuff. So I'm soft tissue management. But of course, these guys are going to trainers and orthopedic surgeons or hand surgeons or sometimes eye surgeons, God forbid, and ophthalmologists, depending on what their are, because again, it's an all over sport. So any part can fail, whether it's a toe or a finger.
So when you're watching a fight, when somebody gets hit a certain way, are you sitting there as a doctor going, "Oh, that's going to hurt"? Or what's your mental?
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the fight. It depends on the fighter. And for example, the Pacquiao Mayweather fight, getting towards the fourth round, all of a sudden I was noticing Manny was not. He was doing funny with his shoulder. He wasn't being aggressive. He wasn't pulling his shoulder up towards his elbow, up towards his head. So I'm like, what's going on with the shoulder? And sure enough, there was a shoulder issue. So I'm like, sometimes you can see if one guy gets hurt or not, how it might change his stance or his fight. The Pacquiao Hatton fight, I was there, and Pacquiao just clobbered Hatton, and it was one of those things that he was out before he hit the ground. You could just tell that his brain got overloaded. I thought he killed him. And I was sitting there like, oh my God, he just killed him. And he didn't, thank God. And, started moving and they got him out and all that kind of stuff. And then, but I've seen fighters that eventually did wind up with bleed on the brain and that sort of thing. And you never want to see that. You never hope for an injury, but you hope for a good fight, and they mix it up. And at the end, they respect each other.
That the referees they're very on top of that. I mean, like I've seen that. You've seen that before too, where they're really watching the kids, and because oftentimes they are very young.
Yeah, they have, and that's a lot better than it used to be. The training of the referees and all of that is much better. And they review film. They go over game film and say, God, I missed it. And a lot of it's timing. And I'll sit behind there. I've had occasions where you sit behind the referees are going to go next, because there's this little place and like three of them will sit in a row, and okay, it's my turn, it's your turn. And
they're watching the fights ahead of them.
Absolutely. And some of them, all three of them, once I saw all three of them shake their head, and then all of a sudden I saw all three of them nod their head. I'm like, so they very much kind of understand that. But to your point, and the athletic commissions have actually really tried to protect the fighter even from themselves, and I say that because back in the day, these fighters would come up and they would fight once a week. Again, they're sending money home and trying to make a living.
Yeah, that's how they're surviving.
And so one guy, he would be, the Cisco kid, and the next week he would be the Frisco kid, and they're like, no. So they fingerprinted everybody, they ID'd everybody, and sometimes after big fights, they give them automatic suspensions so that they can't fight anywhere, because they have to let the body heal, and they've recognized that they can train, but they can't fight. And so they'll automatically suspend them. And sometimes it gets lost in the translation because, okay, well, here's your suspension. Like, what do you mean? I didn't do anything. No. You're fine. Yeah, this is just an automatic.
Trying to protect you.
Right. This is just an automatic thing health wise. So, and then more and more literature comes out about how to train, and then the protective equipment, to mouthpieces, to boxing gloves, to all of that. Like anything else, the sport continues to progress, and hopefully we're able to have really good contests, but still at the end of the day, these guys don't have a lot of orthopedic injuries or intracranial injuries as they get older.
Right. And that's because everybody loves the sport, but you want them to have a good life.
No, absolutely.
That's important.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
So, and then, and some are better than others and all that. And there's currently an ongoing study here at the Lou Ruvo Center for Brain Health, which is a subsidiary of the Cleveland Clinic, and they're doing a fighter study. And they bought in. This was years ago with Senator Harry Reid, who was a boxer himself, coming in. And they got they got UFC, they got Top Rank, they got, I think, Golden Boy.
Yeah, because UFC is also based here.
Based in here in Las Vegas. It truly is Fight Town. And they wanted to really see what's going on in a fighter's brain. And these fighters that are in the study will go ahead and get their CAT scans and some MRIs and some PET scans and everything else, because they want to see longitudinally what happens. And at some point there may be, we don't know because people are variable, there may be something that they see on, an X-ray or PET scan or whatever the case may be, and just go, hey, you might want to stop.
Right. Or maybe at some point they just put a limit on how many fights you have.
Right. So, yeah. So, and that's been controversial for forever because fighters want to fight.
Yeah. Of course.
And so
they have some of those same studies as well. We were talking about football, but this is some of the same studies for brain injury with long-term for football players.
Sure. So, yeah. So at least there's consciousness of it. I mean, for years, and I played a contact sport in college, but for years, like, it's a stinger. It's a concussion. Walk it off.
But it's just cumulative.
But yeah, but, over the years, and especially not at my level, but at, D1 levels and professional levels, contact sports, these guys hit hard.
Yeah.
And even the allegedly non-contact sports, basketball, these guys are getting beat up on every play.
Well, and often by the time we see them as professional level sports people, they've been actually participating since they were little kids.
Yeah.
So it's that years and years of concussions, years and years of
cumulative of injury.
Right.
Yeah. And especially in boxing, because like you identified, is a lot of folks, come up from socioeconomic stuff, which may not be the best, may not be the best nutrition, may not be the best equipment, may not be the best. And for a while, you get higher and higher up on the ranks, and then you find yourself with the best trainers and with the best food and with everything else that we identified. Right. So, yeah, so the evolution of that is really interesting. But what I see more and more is people trying to protect the brain and trying to protect the body for long-term use. Still have a great contest, still have, something that's entertaining. Right. But at the end of the day, you're able to, go ahead and be 20, 30, 40 years down the line and still be able to, get.
Yeah. Cause we've all, like Lyle Alzado is one that comes to mind. These guys that have participated, and Ali, of course. And then many years later, they sort of suffered the ramifications of. So we don't want that for anybody, of course.
So yeah, so even Tommy Hearns, and he's great. I love Tommy. He's great, and he shows up to fights and stuff. And you talk to him, and you're talking to him, and then he'll kind of look at you and he says, "Well," he says, "I'm sorry if I'm talking a little slow. I got hit in the head a lot." And I'm like, "Tommy," and he's like, "No, but it's true." And he says, "And I know, and I get it." So, but he's one of the guys I really like in boxing.
You've actually, and I was going to say, because who are some of the well-known, I mean, a lot of sports folks, but who are some of the ones that really stand out that you've met along the way? Some of you've become friends with. I know Manny is a friend. Yeah.
So there's a lot. The boxers, of course, I have a soft spot for because I see how they train and I see what they go through and I see all of that. And a lot of it's not glamorous. Getting up at 4 a.m. to go ahead and run 5 miles before you have breakfast, and before you start your training, and your training's hard,
and you don't know if you're going to make any money,
right? And that's when you're running in Chuck Taylors and that sort of thing. So I see the struggle and such that these guys and now gals have come up and come through. Some of my favorite guys Diaz Margarito was an interesting cat, Cotto. These are all, and this is all public knowledge. And Wilder, all those, they were all interesting in their own way. Right. Some of them, Jorge Arce was hilarious. Nonito Darnaire, love him. He's a good guy, and all that. So most of these guys, and I have a little different relationship with them because, I don't want or need anything from them, right. And I'm there to help them. You know what I mean? And so they look at me a little different. Which is fine. And they let their guard down with me a little bit. So I can kind of, I get to see a little bit. And so most of these guys are really, really great guys. And then there are athletes that recognize greatness. Barkley, for example, who's the running back for the Giants. His uncle was the Blade, Barkley. Oh. And that's really interesting. Another friend is Jacobs, who used to be the running back for, again, the New York Giants. And he grew up boxing. And he had to decide whether he wanted to.
Many of those guys, some of them had been playing baseball and football. They had to decide. I think Jacobs absolutely could have been heavyweight champion of the world, but he decided to, and we talked about this, and he talked about, he says, but, they offered me college education. Right. Says, I can go play and they give me a college degree. And NFL had like
money and contracts
Right.
and endorsement deals and stuff like that. And he says, so that's, kind of how he chose that path. So it was really sort of interesting to kind of hear. Sugar Ray Leonard, great guy. Met him a couple times. A super nice man. Duran, there's a ton of, Duran stories and everything else, and they're all true.
And it's interesting too, because, the money, like talking about scholarships, all that kind of thing, the money has changed.
Oh,
I mean, even pro football, when I was a kid, it was nowhere near the amounts. Now you're having these guys getting signed for $50 million. I think Waller just got 51 or 50 million for 3 years.
Oh, it's
the money is
preposterous.
just crazy.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely.
So you're going to play as long as you can through the injuries and through that.
Yeah. So it's preposterous. You see some old films. I mean, the first Super Bowl, the picture of the quarterback and drinking a Coke, and having a cigarette, during the first. It's mind boggling. And then, but again, the equipment and everything else was different back then. I was talking to a couple of kids on the schoolyard about basketball. I said, the basketball used to have laces in it. I said, they used to play with Chuck Taylors, it's preposterous.
Oh, the football pads used to be these huge things. Now it's like these little tiny.
It's craziness. So things evolve and things get better. And like you said, helmets get better and equipment gets better. And even in lacrosse, which I played in college, it's a phenomenal sport.
There's actually a pro lacrosse team that just came to Vegas.
The Desert Dogs,
right?
100%.
Yeah.
And those games are a lot of fun. And then the PLL with Rabel and his brother, it's really interesting. There's so many sports now. So we're having a professional lacrosse team in town, which I'm thrilled to have as well. But they've really gone out of the way to protect the head. I mean, stuff that we used to get away with, is no chance.
Because that's actually a pretty dangerous game
anymore. And so helmets have gotten better, and the rules have gotten better, and so that they've gone out of the way to really kind of protect the participant, which is a good thing.
What's your advice, actually, since we're on this topic, advice to parents with young athletes, and what would be your as a doctor, what would be some of the really important points? Well,
the thing is one is do they like doing it? You know what I mean? So nothing worse that the dad or mom on the sideline screaming at the kid, et cetera, et cetera. And we've all seen that. We've all been there. Some of us may have done it. So, okay. That's one. Two is, remember, it's a game, and we see that, and I'll speak for lacrosse a second. We see that in lacrosse is these guys, are doing, spring ball and then fall ball and then summer and then And a lot of the lacrosse coaches are like, well, that's great, but hey, can you play a different sport? Let me see if you're an athlete. And the other thing too is you have to have the grades up as well. And then three is, and this is kind of a wake up call and the numbers may be wrong. Please call in and correct me, but there may be, 25 guys on a D1 lacrosse team, Hopkins or Cornell, whoever you like. And there's 12 scholarships.
Right.
So now what? You know what I mean?
Right.
And so now does the coach split scholarships? Well, yeah, okay. But guess what? Tuition at a private institution, $65,000.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, okay. So now you got to pay $30,000 to play So a lot of these moms and dads are like, oh, well, he'll go D1 and get a college scholarship. But the chances of that are very, very, very small. So you have to really balance that out. And I think some of these kids are, getting injured more often because they're, playing so much.
Right.
And so sometimes you can't get wrapped up in all of that and showcases and sending film out and all that.
Well, you don't want to have an adult injury with a young child that's going to be with them the rest of their life if you can avoid it.
Yeah.
So obviously, like protecting your head, taking common, obvious precautions. I guess, I would think concussion would be like one of the really common injuries for football, for
sure. So football, lacrosse,
soccer.
So, and again, all of these things have recently really gone away to try to protect the kids. Even the NFL is trying to trickle that down.
Right. They had the helmet protectors this year for off-season.
So to try to trickle that down and then not leading with your head into the guy's chest anymore and how to properly tackle. And again, speaking for lacrosse, youth lacrosse is to be a coach. They just don't give you a whistle. You have to take a course and you have to take a test and you have to actually qualify, and they go over that sort of stuff and some first aid and some sports medicine and all that. So I think that the organizations have, I'd like to think, stepped up and need to step up to try to make the kids safe.
Right.
Yeah,
it's super important. I guess ultimately they may come to you for a nose job or
there's
to repair some of the damage.
We get that every once in a while. We get
the scars.
We get the broken nose or the fighters when they're done finally, and a lot of them will have incisions and scars around the lateral orbital rim because
around the eye.
Yeah, around the eye, and so sometimes you'll go ahead and you clean it up a little bit for them, and so there's that. In boxing, it's a strange thing because anything can happen, and we've both seen it. Two guys throw a punch and they both hit each other's hand, which is right. It's or their hip,
or you see these good looking. I call them kids; they're not kids, but you see these good looking guys and women getting beat. You're like, oh, ouch, but they chose to do it. So and it's part and parcel of the game and the sport. And so, when I usually show up, I'm not a surprise, you know what I mean? Right. And they're just like, hi, I'm here. Yeah. Let's go. Let's do it. and I have to tell you, it's and they're usually, and it's nice. It's usually very thankful. And there was one, it was here in Vegas. It was years ago. And it was, I don't know if you would, it was MMA, but it was in a ring and basically it was kind of the AAA of leagues. And so these guys would come back and these guys just getting clobbered. And I'd be in the back sewing. And they would say, wow, you're really a plastic surgeon? I'm like, yeah. He's like, man, he said, because they're on the circuit, right? They go to, places from all over. And I said, we usually get some hack,
some other guy. And I said, no, we're going to wash it out. I'm going to give you antibiotics and we're going to stitch you up and everything else. And they're usually, very, very thankful, but they know that it's really part and parcel of the sport.
Right. Yeah. You're going to get injured if you're in boxing.
Yeah. It's just a matter of time. And it may not be in front of 18,000 people. Sparring. Right. It may be, doing something wacky in the gym. Stuff happens. And if you're around sports, long enough, somebody will be sparring and break a rib. You're like, freaking really? And
it happens all the time.
Happens all the time. Or they tear something or who knows what. So it's a tough way to make a living.
Absolutely. And if anybody we should say, if anybody has questions about that kind of thing, please feel free to contact us. And just in medical questions in general related to plastic surgery, that kind of thing, because that is listen, all these injuries, the orbital injuries, the nose, broken nose, all that kind of stuff is very common with sports participation.
Of course. No, we've some of the craziest stuff I saw is soccer. Because these two guys, the ball's flying in the air and they're running full tilt and they don't see each other and smack and they both lay themselves out. I've seen that in various levels.
Yeah, soccer can be pretty brutal.
Softball, those gals throw hard and they hit hard and that ball comes back fast. And so I've seen a few, facial injuries, et cetera, with that. And I'm very happy that the protections for those folks are better. They're making them wear face masks on a baseball diamond and softball diamond and that sort of thing. So, and so I'm happy to see that. And it's going to evolve. And now at least we're actually looking at that and we're getting good data. Right. And so hopefully we'll be data driven and science driven and get the best practices.
Yeah. We want people to participate and have a great time, but also be safe.
Yeah. At the end of the day, be able to walk away. Oh, I had a great time, but, I could still do calculus,
Exactly.
And I could still, do my job and still.
And get your scholarship and complete your scholarship.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then get out there and do things.
Absolutely. How can people find you if they have questions?
Sure.
And all that stuff.
So the cornerstone is the website, which is www.jjrothmd.com, jjrothmd.com. And then we have lots of social media, meaning that we have Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube channel and all of that. And so by all means, if you have a question or if you have a idea for the show, by all means, call us or let us know, and we'll be happy to go ahead and get that on for you.
Yeah, and all those links are in the podcast description. And please follow, and subscribe. We're available, obviously, on Apple Podcasts and all other major outlets. And we appreciate you taking a moment of your time to listen to what we're having to say.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so very, very much. This has been really spectacular. We've been getting lots of really good feedback and want to bring more towards you. So again, anything we can do, let us know. And thanks again.
Awesome. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us. For further information, please visit the podcast website link for Dr. Jeffrey Roth. See you next time.